Hello everybody and welcome to the True Love Talk channel. As you know, here we want to learn about human sexuality, love, life, family, and all of this from the point of view of the Catholic Church, particularly the teachings that Pope John Paul II left in the Theology of the Body. I am Elisa, and this would be our third video on the series of the Theology of the Body. Today's topic is the modern individual, and we're going to see what that means for us. Okay, so let's begin. Okay, when we talk about modernity, we are talking this historic period that began in the illustration, right? And in illustration, the way we understand human beings became very different because the main values that illustration proposes for human beings are the values of independence, freedom, and autonomy. Now, that sounds good, sure, at a level, but if those are the values, that means that valuable people are supposed to be like that. And that is what creates the modern individual. It is completely different to be an individual than to be a person, right? A person is someone who is always in relationship with others. An individual is a person that is packed in an individual package, right? And that doesn't need the others. So relationships aren't that close. And the reason why we become individuals is because of shame. We are ashamed of our finitude and our dependence. We are always dependent, regardless of how well can you manage your money, regardless of you haven't ever received a penny from anyone since you turned 12, and paying for everything you do yourself. The thing is, you are still dependent on others. Why? Because if you want a house, you have to build it. If you didn't depend on others, you wouldn't have anyone to build it, so you have to build it yourself. And yeah, there are architects in the world and they can build houses, and we can all create some sort of small hut or somewhere to survive, right? But the thing is, if you're making houses, you're not making clothes, you're not growing animals to eat, you're not growing plants, which means that if you have a house, you don't have food and you don't have clothing. But when we accept our dependency and we understand, I am good at making houses, but I can't do anything else, right? Or because I don't have the time. It's not even about being skillful, but sometimes it's about being skillful, but most of the time it's about not having the time to do it, right? When we are together, we can think, okay, I make the houses of everyone else, my house and everyone else's, but that other person gives me meat because I made the house, right? And he's a butcher, and he's also a person that has a big flock of sheep, right? So I can get meat from him, and that other person plants food, so I make him the house, and he gives me, right, all the corn that I can eat, and so on. And that way, we can have everything, although we can't do everything. Okay, that is what's so great about society. We don't have to do everything to have everything. And this is something that derives from who we are, right? First of all, we are created, so which means that, yeah, we're finite. But also, let's remember from last video how the only way to actually build one's identity is being with the other person, right? Being able to help the other person, but also to be able to receive what the other person has to give, right? This is the only way to actually develop our humanity and develop our spirit, right? Who we are, our identity. So when you see it like that, you realize that our finitude and our interdependence from one another, it's actually very, very important, because it's what is going to allow us to actually grow at a certain point, to actually develop and truly know who we are and be the best versions of ourselves. However, we can understand that modernity states that these values, right, freedom, independence, and autonomy are the most important things because they're thinking about being responsible. And of course, we have to be responsible. First of all, because no one can be you for you, right? We have the obligation, right? The responsibility to be ourselves, to live as ourselves, and that is something that we can only do ourselves. No one can be for us, first of all. But we're also responsible because if we don't, responsible comes from Latin respondere, which means to answer. And what we're answering for is the necessities and then are the needs of others, right? Only when we answer to the need of the other person and help them how they need to be helped, do we discover things about ourselves and we understand who we truly are, as we said on the last video. But funny enough, it's like if in modernity, the idea of that being responsible and being dependent on others are polar opposites that exclude one another. Actually, what really happens is that when you understand that you're part of a society and that you always have a responsibility, even when you're partying, you have the responsibility to not stop the music so everybody can keep dancing. So it is only when we understand how we depend on each other and that the other needs us that we can actually be responsible. That is when we understand why it's important to be responsible, right? However, we're in a situation in which being dependent is just shameful, right? It shouldn't happen. And this starts expanding to other areas of our lives to the point that we start thinking that maybe, what makes us human, maybe relationship with others are not the best. Because when you're with others, you stop being that so autonomous and so independent because you have to take into account what other people need, right? You need to know, do they like what I am going to propose? If they don't like it, can I do it without them, right? And usually the answer is, yeah, you could, but it's better if they're there. So if they're not, or it can also happen that if you do, you will lose them, right? And they are far more important for you than it is anything else. So of course you will end up sacrificing things, and then the rules are not just what you want, but you have to take into account anything else that people need or they want. And so the modern individual starts disappearing. And that is why human beings nowadays, modern individuals, do believe that there is a very big risk in the relationship with the other person. That is why we don't value relationships so much anymore. We are with other people, sure, we can have intercourse, but we don't really create a relationship. And we think, oh yeah, no, I am even more free because I can have intercourse with everyone. But actually, freedom is part of being a person. And when we have sex with just anyone, we stop being free because we stop being people, right? In the sense that this is when our spirit becomes smaller and smaller and smaller because there is no recognition from the other person. I don't recognize the other person doesn't recognize me. My spirit starts to underdevelop, and I start to be less of what I am. When we understand dependency, we understand finitude, and we accept it in ourselves. What we have is the possibility of growing, right? And fulfilling our spiritual possibilities. But when we decide that the other person doesn't have a place in my life, that I am never going to answer to their needs and they are never going to answer to my needs, and there is a distance between us, that is when the human spirit never develops and we become less and less human, because to be human we have to work on it, we have to be responsible, and we have to keep going every day of our lives. Being human is a decision that you have to take every second of your life. So yeah, in this way, by hating the dependency, we are hating what makes us human. And of course, this is what will eventually end in the crisis of values, but also of love that we have nowadays. Nowadays, people suffer about sexuality and about relationships deeply, because because we have two antagonizing instincts. The normal natural instinct of I want to have a relationship because I am when I am with others, and the other and this new modern right instinct of you should never depend on anyone and you should always have that healthy distance with the other person and don't let them hurt you so much. And that is when we make each other's life hell, right? We have all suffered for love, and we suffer because we don't treat each other kindly, and we don't do it because we don't see a reason for it. Because we think that doing it is being disrespectful and incondescending with the other person, and that it shouldn't happen, and that it is shameful if others, right, actually help you because hey, you cannot do it yourself. Oh my God, that kind of thing. So this set of values is what is going to create all the pain that are why you are watching these videos right now. Because if you remember, first video what we were talking about is the idea of the series is understanding why sexuality, if it is so wonderful, it becomes the source of our pain and our misery, right? So this is going to be the reason. And to keep understanding this topic, on the next video, we're going to explain how does this idea of independence and autonomy and so on is going to take away our sexuality, right, in what I call the castration complex. So anyway, that's the topic for next week. If you have any question, any comment, please write it in the comment section below. I'll try to answer it as soon as possible. And well, I'm very glad that you're here. Have a nice day. Lots of blessings for everybody. Hope to see you next week. Bye.